Welcome to your 12-minute HR lesson YouTube edition. As with the others, this is one of our more popular episodes, but with some interesting stuff in the background just to look at. This is a overnight sail over to Waiheke Island. Beautiful day, not quite enough wind, but I ended up with a really nice slide across the south coast of the island. Campground was a little bit problematic, you'll see as we go, but great trip, great overnight trip.
Welcome to your 12-minute HR lesson. Today, I want to talk to you about listening. I want you to stop, pay attention. I want to get you off your phone and pay full attention to me. Actually, no, I don't. To be honest, you can do whatever you like when you're listening. But on the other hand, that's something that it's worth reflecting about as you listen to this. How much attention are you giving to me? Does it make a difference about how well you absorb it? Because the art of listening can be strangely complex. Listening is a combination of both hearing and paying attention. And sometimes we're not great at doing both at the same time. And being better at it can make our lives a lot easier and make us better at our jobs. Interested in knowing more? Well, let's go. I wasn't going to do this topic today. I have a bit of a problem that every day I can think of 3 new topics and I diligently write them down before I lose them. But then when it comes down to my next recording session, I think of something new. So those other 3 go in the queue, and the queue's getting pretty long now. I think I'm up to about 50. Plus I've got another 20 recorded. So there's every chance that those ideas, either I won't get to them ever and I'll be picking up those notes in a year's time going, what was I thinking? So hence I have to write the notes that future me will understand what I'm talking about, will get the idea, but hopefully that's not going to be a problem. We'll find out. But the topic for today, I was going through my notes and I went, oh, that's a great topic. I have to do that now. But when I worked on this topic, I found, it's slightly more complex. It's slightly trickier than it first appeared. I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to get there in that slightly oblique way that I always do. But here's where it gets complex. I can either do one of 2 things. I can tell you about an amusing anecdote or something in the story about times that people didn't really listen and things went badly. That's kind of the subplot of every rom-com, the eliciting event of every rom-com. Misunderstanding, things go badly, everything works out, in the end girl gets boy. Or alternatively, I can talk about people who are bad listeners, and that just becomes a gripe fest. You don't want to listen to me griping about people who don't listen to me. The irony. But I know that you can. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to think about someone, one person, who is a bad listener. And I want you to say that name out loud. You don't have to yell it. If you're on the bus, whisper it quietly. But if you can, say it out loud, because that crystallizes and solidifies your point. Do that now if you can. Okay, you're back. Whether or not you paused or whether or not you said it, you've now thought of one specific person. Now here's the question, why are they a bad listener? I can think of probably 2 ways in which they are, but I want you to also think or say out loud specifically why they are a bad listener. And we're back. So there's lots of different ways in which people can be bad listeners. There's 2 broad categories. One is that they're not giving you attention. The other is they are impatiently waiting their turn. So let's talk about the first one, how they're not giving you enough attention. Probably the most common is they're just distracted. They're looking at their phone, they're checking their emails, their mind has wandered, and they're trying to do 2 things at once. They are not giving you 100% of the listening. They're giving you 50, 60, 30, whatever it is. They're doing the body language, but they're not really paying you full attention. The second area is where they're listening with an agenda. They're listening, but they're only listening to the things that they want to hear. They're filtering what you're telling them so that they can respond to what they want. They're going through what you're putting down selectively so that they can win an argument. Alternatively, they're trying to turn it around to make it all about themselves. They're trying to jump in with solutions when that's not actually what you want, or they're trying to get to the solution or to the outcome quickly. What they're not doing is allowing you the opportunity to say what you want to say, the way that you want to say it, and allowing you to drive and dictate while you're talking what is being talked about. Essentially, to keep it simple, they're not giving you your turn fairly. Conversations don't have to be all about us, and sometimes they are backwards and forwards, but sometimes we have to take turns. And when it's your turn, the other person should be giving it to you if they expect to have their turn afterwards. So why have I called this the lost art of listening? Partially it's a cliche, and it's always sort of useful to tap into a cliche. But there's two interesting things in there. One, listening is an art. Listening is a skill. Listening is not a science. Listening is not a paint by numbers. You do A, then B, then C, then D, and you get to that outcome. Listening is a skill that people can be good at and is contingent upon the circumstances in which they are in. So when we talk about things being an art, it's not a precise science. It is something that we need to adapt to the circumstances that we find ourselves in, and some people are better than others. Is it lost? I risk being a bit curmudgeonly in this space. I'll leave that up to you. Are people more distracted these days? Are we more prone to pull our phones out the second that we're slightly bored? Look, that's up to you. I would err on the side of probably a bit, but also recognise people have been making these accusations for centuries, so who knows? I want to make these practical lessons. So, me having a whinge, or us having a reflect about how other people are bad listeners, and feeling a bit guilty about perhaps being bad listeners ourselves, that's all fine and good, but I want to give you something useful you can do differently next time. I always want you to walk away from this with a little idea in your head, a little nugget of knowledge, a little trigger that hopefully next time you find yourself in a circumstance, you might make a slightly better decision. And the formula that I want to put in your brain is this: X plus Y plus 1. I'm not saying it's the only solution. I don't even know if it's true. I've essentially made it up based on my own experiences. So therefore, think about this as a potential model for being a good listener. There's 3 parts. X is what is the person saying to you. X is where someone is explaining to you, and you need to listen to that. You need to be a passive listener to what the person is telling you. Because there are 2 parts of listening. There's active listening and passive listening. The person, if they've got something to say, we want to be active but not straight away. There's something on their mind. There's something they've been thinking about. There's a pretty good chance that they have been rehearsing this in their head, like we all do. Sometimes if we're anticipating having to talk to someone, we do a little rehearsal. Fine, let them do that. Let them get that out. Be passive at X, in that X process. First part, passive X. Listen. Don't do anything else other than listen to them. If you really want to, make sure you're facing them. There's nothing in your hands. There's nothing else in your eye line. Just them. This is particularly risky if you're doing this online. Y is where you get active. Y is once they've finished that, and sometimes you might need to cut them off if they're starting to repeat themselves, that's fine. Y is the point in which you switch over to being active, and you ask them the questions that you think you need to know. You ask them the gaps. What is this? Why was this? When did this happen? Who was there? What did they say? As fact as much as possible. But ask them questions that is drawing information out of their brain. Don't ask them questions that essentially is you taking over. You want to know what's in their brain. Don't try and use questions to put information into their brain. If I don't mention open and closed questions here, lots of people will be saying it or screaming it as they listen to this. So this is, just to be clear, this is where you ask open questions, not closed questions. Closed questions are essentially you telling them in a different form. Open questions are still them telling you. Asking active questions is all about what else is in their brain that I think I might want to know or I think is quite relevant. Don't use it as a method to try and turn the conversation around. The +1 is ask one question at the end that gets to the heart. When I'm dealing with managers who have difficult employees, one of my favourite +1s at the end is, okay, what's our happy place here? What are we looking for? What do you want to have happen? I remember years ago a teacher asking me, very wise man, very clever man, excellent listener, he said to me, what do you want me to know? And it's stuck in my brains, we're talking 30 years later. Such an excellent wrap-up question. What is it that you want me to know here? If it's just an information transfer, but if we're trying to work out something together, then maybe you want to know what they want to do. Okay, well, therefore the question is, what do you want to do? Or alternatively, what does a good resolved situation look like to you? Because listening is not agreeing. Listening is not being submissive. But listening is all about giving people their turn. And it's not just about shutting your mouth. That is part of it. But it's also about letting them get out what they need to get out so that they can feel heard. That's why we let them say what they want to say, ask them questions to uncover what's in their mind, and asking them a really succinct wrap-up question, well, what do you want to do? What do we want here? So at the end of it, that person feels that they have been heard. They feel that they've been given a fair turn. As always, thank you for listening. Please check out Pragmatic HRM for all the things that we can do for either you or for your organization. If you're interested, get in contact. But as always, if you can share us, if you can post us, if you can repost us, if you can like us, if you can follow us, if you could do all of those little selectivist social media things that helps us spread ourselves around, we'd very much appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time.